So, in light of Women's Month, we want to unpack the role of women in leadership, and specifically in these particularly uncertain times. And joining us today is Lindy Rousseau, who's the Chief Marketing Officer for Singita. They are 6-star, in my opinion, luxury African safari lodges and reserves. So not only does Lindy have to deal with the challenges of being a female leader, as we know sometimes can be challenging, but she also has to navigate this role in the tourism industry, one that has been completely decimated in this pandemic. So Lindy, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Nat.
So, for me, the real talking point for today is getting some insight from you on what's it like being a leader in the South African tourism industry during these uncertain times. What sort of challenges are you faced with as a woman leader, and how are you overcoming these challenges? And perhaps you can shine some light on this from both a pre-COVID as well as the current situation.
Sure, Nat. So I think, tourism is one of the industries where the amount of women that hold senior positions and across the whole industry, in fact, is fairly disproportionate. It's different to most other industries. So there's always been a pretty strong female presence in the tourism industry, which does make it easier. I'm sure that within specific companies, there are still a lot of challenges that women face being in male-dominated businesses, but in the industry as a whole, there are a large number of women. What's been really interesting to me in this COVID pandemic, though, was just how quickly women in the industry understood that collaboration was the way forward in terms of this pandemic. So what happened shortly after we went into lockdown is a lot of groups and opportunities to share thoughts were formed. And I honestly, if my memory serves me correctly, every single one of those groups and forums was initiated by and chaired by women. So women generally collaborate far easily. They don't see collaboration as something that's unusual. Oftentimes men feel that they've got to solve the problem on their own. So that was a really interesting thing for me to observe. Women didn't even have to talk about what the next steps were. They just naturally went into collaboration mode.
So yeah, more so than a male counterpart, it's probably more intuitive for us.
No question. As I say, the men joined these forums very quickly and were very comfortable joining the forums, but the initiation for the forums came in just almost every forum I can think of came from women. And, so we started talking together as an industry, competitor brands, competitor properties, started to talk about very intimate things that were going on in our businesses. And women feel very comfortable doing that. There isn't a sense of competitiveness. There isn't a sense of, gosh, I'm not sure I'm allowed to say this in this forum. Women were very comfortable bringing whatever needed to be brought to the party. Men took a little bit longer to feel comfortable in that forum, to feel quite so vulnerable in the forum, to feel quite so open in the forum, to admit that things were actually going quite pear-shaped in their own business. It took they had to warm up to the idea, where women really just didn't even give it a thought. It was just a very natural thing to do.
So just to cap, what qualities do you feel that women possess that make females such great leaders, or that you feel have really served you as a female leader in your industry?
Yeah, this COVID time has been really, really interesting for women, particularly because, women naturally are more empathetic. They nurture more easily. They tend to be less egotistical, and those values were not seen as positive, or not necessarily not seen as positive, but they were not valued by organizations. They were kind of seen as soft and, oh my gosh, there she goes again, worrying about the fact that somebody's child is sick, or, can't be fetched from school, or what people are feeling. And boy, oh boy, has COVID not turned that on its head. Because in order to survive this pandemic, we have had to fall back on those kinds of values. So, first of all, being totally empathetic and absolutely sitting back, listening and understanding and being there for staff, for suppliers, for customers. Nurturing and moving into a role where you actually have to start taking care of what, people's emotions, people's thoughts, the situations people are facing, being really agile and not hanging on to, this is what we've decided and these are the rules, therefore that's how we have to do it, but being able to flex very quickly. And if you think of just how much extra responsibility women had to take on during this pandemic. So all of a sudden your world is turned upside down. Your children are no longer going to school. Your carer can't come to a house to help with children, your au pair, all those support systems. You can't see your parents who are support systems. And women had to step into that role very, very quickly, of homeschooling, of making sure there was food in the cupboard, cooking, while still retaining their roles as whatever their job requirement was in a home environment. So you think that amount of change, that's a lot to have to cope with in a very short period of time. And I think by and large, women shifted. I'm not saying it didn't come without enormous sacrifice and enormous amount of energy, of pressure, but women segued into that role and just did it, And what I'm seeing now, in organizations and in the industry, with male colleagues, is a much greater understanding of, just how much women actually do take on in their day-to-day lives, and how easily women can transition into a whole different set of requirements, and they just get on with it, get it done. They use their networks, they cry on each other's shoulders, they share their burdens and concerns with their female colleagues. And I think, in a way, I think that COVID has done women in business a great favor, because it really has highlighted women's ability to manage so many different things at once, to be agile, nimble, and change whenever needed, but also to bring that kind of really human, nurturing empathy. And businesses have seen the value of that. It's what's carried us through. It's what's kept our staff going. Is that knowledge that the organization they work for genuinely cares about them.
So speaking about staff, Lindy, I believe you employ in the region of about 1,600 staff throughout Africa, and then the broader knock on, because these people are supporting, I don't know, 10 people per person working. So there's it's such an uncertain time. How do you keep staff motivated, as a leader? And how do you ensure that staff are providing with provide each guest with the same experience, or even a heightened experience at this particular time when they come to your lodges?
Yeah, again, an area we really had to dig deep and understand what is required in these times to achieve those objectives that you've just laid out. And we know we're a business that delivers experiences to guests. So we know that if our staff is not happy, really happy, genuinely, deeply happy, that experience is going to be affected. So something we had to really spend a lot of time thinking about, spend a lot of time trying to understand from our staff's perspective what was important to them. And what we've learned on this journey is that, the first thing is to truly lend an empathetic ear. So, this is not about having an open house and having all your staff together and chatting to them and hoping to get feedback. This is about taking time out in every area of your business, all of your leadership, to talk one-on-one to staff and really listen, really understand what their issues are, what their concerns are, what they're dealing with personally. And just that gesture of making the time to listen, one often doesn't have the answers and can't, all the solutions, but just the gesture of genuinely listening goes an incredibly long way to making staff feel that they're supported and that you are there for them and that you do understand. So that was the first thing, is we upped our communication significantly in the one-on-one space. We launched a lot of initiatives that spoke to staff's needs. So a lot of internal training around health, around family dynamics, around managing money, around healthy eating, around healthy lifestyle. And so we launched a lot of those initiatives that spoke specifically to issues that were of huge concern to staff. So that was the first thing. The second thing is to continually give staff feedback on the direction of the business. So in these ever-changing, very volatile times, you had to check in very frequently, and particularly your senior leadership had to talk to staff and give them a sense of, we understand this is hard, we understand this is unpredictable, but we've got a plan. And this is what our plan is. And this plan may change in a month's time, but this is what the plan is. So that staff had the comfort of knowing that they would have a job, and that we have thought about a way of navigating through this challenging time. Because I think the thing that was toughest for staff was the uncertainty. When is this going to end? How's it going to impact my job? Will I have a job? Will I be fired at some point because the industry doesn't come back? So that put a lot of pressure on staff. So knowing that the senior management had a plan and that they were part of the plan helped tremendously. And then the third thing we realized is that you needed to understand that people needed a break, because the pressure that everybody, our staff, was under in terms of all these extra responsibilities of looking after children, suddenly not having maybe a full salary, being uncertain, having loved ones maybe that got ill, that's a lot of extra pressure on people. And so we realized that you had to make sure that you were continually providing little gestures of support. So things like we would say, our heads of department and people who are leaders in our teams were given carte blanche to, if you feel that one of your team needs an afternoon off, you simply say to them, take the time out. If you see people are taking huge strain, you talk to them about what would help them. And if they say, gosh, I just need a morning to go and get my hair cut, I haven't been able to get my hair cut, you go ahead and allow that person to do it. So, they don't put in for leave. You don't follow the rules on this. You're just tuned into the fact that people need a break. You perhaps just do a little gesture of sending somebody a little voucher to take their kids to go and play putt-putt or go and do a surf lesson or something. Just tuning in and being able to do these little gestures that indicate we've got you, and your health is more important to us, and we're prepared to sacrifice an afternoon away from your desk so that you can have time to just chill and heal a little bit. So again, I suppose it speaks to that connectedness with your staff, and having empathy and having the courage to kind of break the rules a bit where it's needed.
Well, no wonder you are such an awesome well-known establishment, because if your staff aren't happy, it certainly has a knock-on effect to your guests. Lindy, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Some really inspiring and thought-provoking points that came out of our session today, and hopefully it will inspire others to think differently about ways to ensure that our staff are feeling motivated and productive and feeling supported through these really difficult times. So Lindy, thanks so much. Wishing you all the best for, the uncertain
whatever's going to happen next.